Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a Shortstop with a Shortstop. I have a guest with me today. His name is Whitacre, and he has come from Tennessee to help us with an evangelism seminar, and we are so excited to have him and his family with us here. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about unity. We're going to talk a little bit about evangelism.
And the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall arise, no more sorrows someday.
Unity is a very important thing. We look in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. It says we should have all things in common. You look at Ephesians chapter 4 and all the ones that are there, and you go into Acts chapter 2, and you see that the first congregation that was ever started, they did have all things in common. They were just busy with each other. But with a baseball team, me personally, with my second baseman, whether it be Joe Morgan or Dwayne Kuiper or whoever I was playing with, if we didn't communicate one with another and know where we liked the ball on double plays, it would hurt us. But when we talked with each other and we had unity with each other, it helped the team. And unity is an important thing for the church. Would you care to expound on that a little bit?
Johnny, the purpose of evangelism is to unify people around the cross. And so if your evangelism is not focused on bringing people together and bringing them together with Christ as the foundation, you're missing the mark. So evangelism at its core is a unifying effect upon religious people. Now you look out into the world today, and unity is anything but what we see in the religious world. We unfortunately see division. We see people with a variety of beliefs. And so one of the reasons we started our School of Evangelism was to help teach churches how to bring people together in their local communities. So evangelism focused on the very principles of the Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 4, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. And absolutely, there are so many examples that you can use, whether it be in the sporting arena, the business world, whether it be in national interest, getting people to come together, and that's the goal of evangelism.
One of the things that Jesus prayed for was unity. And if a congregation such as the Paintsville Church of Christ, when we are all together and on one marching order, we are an army.
That's right.
We are a team. We are functioning together, and so many more things can get done properly the way that God wants them done if we work as a team.
That's 100% right. In fact, you referred to John chapter 17, which is what we really can call the Lord's Prayer. This is Jesus. He's praying to the Father, and I want to point out just a few words that we normally emphasize in our outreach efforts, and I think this is one of the most appealing parts of Christianity, the unity that Christ promotes. So in John chapter 17, in beginning in verse number 20, he says, "Neither pray I for these alone, but for all those who believe on me through their word, that they all may be one." I want you to stop here and I want you to listen to this one word, one. I want you to count how many times Christ uses this word in 3 verses. That they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me and I in thee, that they may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me, and the glory which thou gavest me I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, thou in me, that they may be made perfect or perfected into one. And so here we have in John 20, in the 17, in verse 20 through 22, the very essence of the appeal Christ is making is for his followers to be one. And it's so disheartening to look out into the religious world and notice that's not been accomplished. There's division everywhere. And the only winner in this division is the devil himself. He is the father of all lies. He loves division. So evangelism is teaching God's people how to place that one heart, that one soul, that one mind into the very body of religious believers.
Just to bring up another scripture, when we look at Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 4, we see that there's one hope, one faith, one body, one baptism, and it says that there's one God. Right? And He's given us our marching orders. And when we listen and apply those marching orders, it's telling us all to be together.
That's right.
And then when we go back in Acts chapter 2 at the very beginning of the church, you start about verse 42, Acts chapter 2 and verse 42, they were going house to house. They were eating with each other. They were fellowshipping with each other. They were doing everything with each other.
That's right. That's right.
But it stormed the whole world.
You know, in Acts chapter 4, it says, they were of one heart and one soul. And the church didn't start with 10 different baptisms.
Right.
The church didn't start with 10 different names. The church didn't start with, you have your faith and I have my faith and we're all going to heaven. We have to realize that is a result of Satan's sowing of discord, his sowing of the seed of division. Proverbs says that there are 7 things that God hates. And one of those is he that sowed discord among the brethren.
Amen.
Well, so this division that's occurred among religious believers, some sprinkle, some pour water, some immerse, some, that is not what God intended. In the very beginning, as the church started, they were of one heart, one soul. And in Acts chapter 2, they were steadfast in the apostles' doctrine, not in the traditions of men, not in what's popular, not in what the majority wanted, but what God wanted. Evangelism is an effort to help people see that purity of the oneness of Christ. One of the most appealing parts of Christianity, at least as we're teaching those who may not be familiar with Christianity and the concepts, is that you can just be a Christian. You don't have to be a denominational Christian. You don't have to attach another name. It's amazing how appealing and refreshing it is when I can come to somebody and say, hey, would you like just to be a Christian? What kind of Christian do you want me to be? Because their mindset is a denominated Christianity. In the economics of the world, you denominate money. There's a $100 bill. There's a $50 bill. In a fraction, there's a denominator. It's the dividing part of the number. Even in politics, there is an election process where there is a nomination and you nominate different people and there's division. In the church of the Bible, none of that can be found. There are Christians and Christians only. So to appeal to people and say, hey, wouldn't you like to go back to the Bible and find that one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one God, one Spirit, one Father, and that's such an appeal in that one body. I don't know if there is not a more appealing message out there for people. If you're looking for that, you're wanting to find the purity of what you read about in the New Testament. That's why we're here. That's what we're trying to be. We're not trying to become a denomination of the Church of Christ. We want to be the Church of the Bible. And the only reason we use the name Church of Christ is because that's what they were called. They salute one another with a holy kiss. The churches of Christ salute you. They were called Christians first at Antioch. That's what I want to be. I don't want to be anything other than a Christian. That is a message that appeals to people. When you sit down with people who've been divided into their families, you have perhaps some are Methodists, some are Episcopalian, some are Baptists, some are Catholics. You say, let's not be a Baptist. Let's not be a Methodist. Let's not be a Presbyterian. Let's just be Christians. That's how you achieve unity. You don't achieve unity by saying, well, the Catholic Church is better than the Baptist Church. The Methodist Church is better than the Episcopalian Church. That is disunity. What you can say is, why don't we all just be Christians and follow the same model they followed in the first century? That's where evangelism becomes not just essential, it becomes fun. I love what I do.
Absolutely. Now in baseball, we have a rule book.
Yes.
And it tells us where the strike zone is, how many players you can have on the field at a time, whether you have lines dictating where you have a fair ball or a foul ball, and then you have home run fences. But if a pitcher's out there putting Vaseline on a ball, then he pays a penalty for it.
That's right. That's right.
But in the religious world today, we also have a rule book, and it's this right here. And God has given us instructions, and the thing about it is we all have the same Bible, and we can all read it and come to a conclusion, and God has already interpreted the Bible Himself. We don't have a part in being the interpreter. And Second Peter chapter 1 verse 20 and 21 tells us we don't have our own private interpretation.
That's right.
But we do have a rule book. And as you've been stating here over the night, it says, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So how do we know the truth? And that's by picking this up and reading it and trying to apply it to our lives. And that's where unity will come from.
Johnny, that's exactly right. Let me use a baseball analogy, and I've used this for years. And let's just suppose that our society, our culture is changing very quickly. Let's just suppose in 50 years there's no more baseball. I want you to imagine. I know it's hard to imagine that, but let's go to a place in our society where there's no baseball, no one's heard of baseball, no one knows anything about baseball. It's just been erased from our culture. And your grandson, great-great-grandson, goes up into the attic. He's fumbling through some old boxes, and he comes across this book, How to Play Baseball. He comes across a baseball glove, a bat, a ball. He says, well, that's interesting. And he begins to read it. And he reads about, there's nine players on the field. Talks about pitcher, catcher, the bases, 3 bases, the home plate. And he follows that rule book, to the letter of the law. What has he done? Now, let me give you 2 options. Option number 1, he's created baseball. Option number 2, he has restored baseball. Here's what I want you to understand. We're not trying to create a church. Okay, that's not what this young man's going to do. He's going to restore, he's going to go back to the book, and he's going to restore baseball. He didn't invent baseball. We're not inventing Christianity. What we're trying to do is go back to the book, and that's how you find unity. And we're trying to restore religion to Christian oneness, faith. When Paul says there's one Lord, that means there's one authority in our life. And that means that there's only one source for all of that authority, and that's Christ. When he says there's one body, well, in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22 and 23, he says he's put all things under his feet and gave him to be the head over all things to the church, which is his body. Mm-hmm. The fullness of him that filleth all in all. The body's the church. Jesus died for his church. He didn't die for my church. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. He didn't die for yours or for anybody else's. He died for his. That's the one church. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're not here to say, well, we're better than you or they're better than them. We're saying that Christianity is the only, it is the best, and there is no other. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. John chapter 14 and verse 6. So this is a very important topic. When we talk about evangelism, we're not trying to say we're trying to force you. We're trying to appeal to you based upon a simple message that Jesus taught. When Jesus came on the scene, just think about how the religions of the world looked, Johnny, when Jesus came. All right, you had the Jewish religion. That's really not what you had. You had Pharisees. That's a denomination of Judaism. Sadducees. That's another denomination of Judaism. You had Essenes and Zealots. Judaism had been denominated. It had been divided into sects. And do you know what the Pharisees wanted from Jesus? What they really wanted? Him to join their sect.
Exactly.
If he could have been a Pharisee, wow. The Sadducees wanted the same thing. And when Jesus said, no, I'm just going to be a pure Old Testament Jew, they hated him for that. Think about today. I'm not going to be a Baptist. I'm not going to be a Catholic. I'm not going to be a Presbyterian. Not because I don't like the people. I love the people. I'm just going to be a Christian. I just want to be a New Testament Christian. That is so appealing. That's evangelism. That's trying to share that message with others. And that's why we see so many conversions. When I sit down and share that message with people, they're like, where have you been? That's what I've been looking for. And that's so refreshing. I mean, I don't have to be a Baptist. I can just be a Christian. I don't have to be an Episcopal. No, you can just be a New Testament Christian. The same message we're giving today is the same message Christ gave. They crucified Christ for it. And I know there are people who do not like this message. I can't believe that you wouldn't want to be part of my little group. No, I don't want to be a part of any group other than the Christian group.
The story about the young man going up and finding the rule book and playing bass. It kind of sounds like a story about almost like King Josiah.
That's right.
He had the Old Testament brought back to him and read to him after many years where it had been just flat put away. And he saw that where he was missing the boat, and he said, hey, it's time for us to get back where we need to be. And Josiah got his people back where they needed to be. And I can't remember exactly, Zach will have to correct me, but it seems like they stood up and listened to one of the Levites read from the Old Testament for about 12 or 13 hours, and the people stood. And that's pure respect right there for, but you know, I think about the Apostle Paul. You know, he visited Corinth, he visited Thessalonica, he went to Berea, he went to Philippi. He went to a lot of these cities where congregations had just been started. But let's say he came to Paintsville, Kentucky. Let's say the Apostle Paul came back to life, and he walked over here to our little filling station here and walked in and asked the cashier, said, can you direct me to the church? And cashier might say, well, there's a Baptist church over here, there's a Catholic church over here, or there's a Presbyterian church over here. Paul says, no, I want you to direct me to the church that Christ died for. Do you think he would go crazy if a lot of answers came back to him like that? But that's what we need to search for today, is we need to go back to the pattern and look and find that unity and love that those first century Christians had together. Thank you, everybody, again for being with a Shortstop. And Rob, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it very, very much.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
And there will be a second edition to Evangelism.